Hello and welcome to Record Sports Hotline Live. My name is Daniel Corn. I'm delighted tonight to be joined by Record Sports Craig Swan. Swanee, how's it going?
Yeah, I'm good, Daniel. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. Well, I say I'm very good. Steve Clarke in Scotland kind of ruined my my weekend last night. Whatever way you look at it, Swanee, that was a sore one to take.
It was, and coming hard on the heels of the way the game was lost late against the Poles last Thursday, and then obviously the last game of the Euros in Germany. These late sucker punches seem to be taking a real effect on Scotland at the moment. But I have to say, I thought there was a lot to be encouraged about with the performance. I know we'll dig deeper into it later on. But I thought there were some decent signs and some things to take from it that maybe, to me, possibly turn the narrative a little bit from Germany and as regards the manager. Just a couple of thoughts that entered my head.
I completely agree. I thought several players were absolutely outstanding. I mean, the first one actually that I want to highlight is Billy Gilmour. I mean, I don't know what you think, but he's such a classy player. He's just absolutely brilliant to watch. And I thought last night again, he was one of the best players in the park.
Yeah, I thought he was terrific. He's so composed. He's calm. He seems to, and for somebody who plays that position, and I think something that was angled at him when he first started in the team was, it was always, he was playing it safe. But I think that's just because he was breaking his way into the team. I mean, he likes to try and play forward passes when he can. I think the move for, Scott McTominay, look, he's just dynamite these last two games. He's just turned into such a big player for us, and those two boys are only going to get better playing in Serie A when I play. So that's very encouraging. I mean, I think you're looking now at a case of building a team around them.
Aye, definitely. We're obviously broadcasting live on YouTube. Alex has been in touch and he just simply says, I was devastated, which, to be honest, last night, that is exactly how I felt, Alex.
But it was a different type of devastation.
Aye.
It was devastation in Germany because the performances were so poor and you felt so let down. Last night was devastation just because of the lateness of the goal. But I think the actual performance itself, listen, we had to ride a luck at times. Of course we did. We're playing Portugal away. We're not going to go and dominate the ball. It's not going to happen. But I thought there was some really big performances in there. I thought there was a spell in the game at 1-1 where they really showed a bit of grit. And I don't mean diving into tackles. I mean grit as in being brave and taking it and passing their way back into the game. And that's something that we'll maybe touch on later on as well. Just you looked at them and you wondered where was that composure in the summer?
Aye, you've actually hit the nail on the head. I was so devastated because we gave them a game. We actually competed with them, and particularly when Portugal equalised, you kind of thought, oh God, this could end up badly. But then we come out and actually started playing again, threatened them. A couple of penalty shouts that weren't penalties, but it's the hope that gets you, I guess, is what I'm searching for. But obviously, neither of us, Swanee, were at the game in Lisbon, but two guys that were our Hotline Live stalwarts, Keith Jackson and Scott McDermott. And as they travelled home earlier today, I caught up with them to get their take on the game, and here's what they said. Guys, there was plenty of positives, I think, to take. I thought Billy Gilmour last night was brilliant. I thought McTominay, particularly in the first half, was a constant threat. But ultimately, it's another defeat, and it's 1 win in 14 now for Scotland.
Yeah, but listen, there's a way to look at this, Daniel, and when we went into this tournament, this latest Nations League, it was a possibility that 2 games in, if Steve Clarke lost them both, there would be a real clamour, and you'd be thinking, right, okay, we now need to think really seriously about making a change before the World Cup qualifiers. Although we've lost these 2 games, we've shown more than enough for me to suggest that there's a change of mental approach to this. Had we played against Poland and Portugal the way we played at the Euros and lost them both, then I think, by this point there's a bit of a clamour for change. Had we played the way we've played in the last 2 games, had we played like that in the Euros, we wouldn't have come back with our tails between our legs. We would have welcomed that team back and said, do you know what, guys, you emptied the tank over there. Superb, great job. This is far more aggressive. It's far more ambitious. It's far more like the Scotland that we want to see. And if this is the road that Steve Clarke intends going down, I'm happy. I'll jump on board with that. I'm happy with that.
I definitely think he bought himself a bit of time Daniel. I mean, listen, nobody was saying he was going to get the sack imminently, or we're going to look to get rid of him imminently. But as Jacko touched on there, I think there was a genuine fear going into this Nations League that if we suffered a couple of sore ones early doors,
and if we played in such a timid and toothless sort of a style as we did at the Euros,
and it looked as if the players were effectively just carrying on in that mode for the Euros, then I think that would have been a big problem for him. And I've said before that it was okay Steve Clarke saying I'll be ready to take us into the World Cup qualifiers, I've earned it and all that. But if these results, these performances had have went badly, then it might not have been his choice, might not have been his decision. As Keith says, there would have been a clamour for a change in manager, but I do actually think we've turned the corner a bit, despite the two defeats last night, especially. As Jacko said, if we'd have played like that and even got that result against Germany in the opener, against
the same result, the same set of results as we got,
then I don't think people would have been too unhappy or disheartened. There were a lot of positives last night. You're going to one of the top teams in Europe, and the key thing was we were competitive for the full 90 minutes. We were in the game, at one each after an hour. You were sitting watching it thinking, you're the better team. We've actually got
on top of the game for 20 minutes after the equaliser. But I thought the key thing, and I keep coming back to it, and I know that you've heard enough, I keep coming back to Munich in the first game against Germany and the decision to drop Billy Gilmour. And everything that I've seen since then confirms to me that it was the most ludicrous decision, one of the most ludicrous decisions that Steve Clarke's made. What is the key? And he said it last night, even after the game. The key to defending against top quality opposition is to try and keep the ball for a while. And when you look at our midfield, they are designed to keep the ball. We went into that Germany game and started shelling long balls in the hope that Ryan Christie might get up the pitch and pick up a scrap somewhere.
Last night when we played through our midfield,
we were terrific
and got the ball to McTominay in the kind of number 10 position. We broke on them and looked dangerous, and that was causing Portugal a real problem that they had to try and fix in the second half. And that's what they did by making a couple of substitutions.
But that is the key. See, if you're playing against a team of that calibre, they need to be concerned. You need to offer something during the match that makes them think we just 100%. Can't launch ourselves forward here because they'll catch us. Yeah. We've seen enough from this that they'll catch us if we just kind of throw the kitchen sink at it here. Yeah. Admittedly, they did have to do that in the second half, but they were always cautious of the fact that they knew that we had the players in midfield that could cut through them, and that is exactly how I want to see Scotland play going forward.
And by the way, as much as obviously Portugal with a lot of pressure, and I don't want to be too harsh on him because he made a couple of brilliant saves after it, but it's a mistake again that gets Portugal back in the game. I don't care what anybody says. Angus Gunn, he's got to save that. He kind of held his hands up after the game last night. He knows he's got to do better with that. He's got to make that save. Now listen, Portugal might still have went on and won the game, but
he's got to save that. Aye. We were speaking before the game, Daniel, and we said, what we are crying out for is an Al McGregor, Craig Gordon, or David Marshall, one of these keepers who makes the saves that he's got no right to make.
Yeah.
See that one last night? That was one that he has to save. That's a routine for an international goalkeeper. That's simply not good enough.
And that
he did redeem himself.
He did, but that might have just kept us ahead a bit longer.
Aye.
The result might have been difficult. And again, I don't want to be harsh on him because he did make a couple of brilliant saves after that to keep it at one each.
As you can probably imagine, we've had quite a strong response on social media to Angus Gunn. If you guys were in Steve Clarke's shoes, would you consider a change for the games next month?
Do you know what? I would have to keep my eye on the situation. Angus Gunn's form at Norwich has dipped as well. It's no coincidence. So I'd be looking at it really closely, and unless I was happy and convinced that he was back, his confidence was up and he was playing at the top of his game. If, however, you're looking at things at Norwich and it's not going right, I think at that point there's a blank sheet for all your goalkeepers at the next training.
The problem is there's a lack of competition.
There is a lack.
Robbie McCrory's not played the last few games for Tavernier. I know he's been struggling with an injury. Xander Clark's not played the last few games for Hearts, I think I'm right in saying, because Craig Gordon's came back in. So
what about Craig Gordon?
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
exactly.
Well, there you go. But listen, my instinct would be to stick with Gunn for now, but
you can't stick with him indefinitely.
No, of course
you can't do that. But I tell you what, he's bought himself a bit of time as well. Angus done with the saves that he made late on, because they were saves that you're actually looking at going, you've got no right to make that one. That'll do.
Yeah. Look, I absolutely hate being the doom-monger, but obviously next month we've got Croatia away and Portugal at home. We're currently 8 competitive games without a victory, our longest run in history. If it goes to 9 and 10, I mean, Steve Clarke's going to be under serious pressure.
I don't think so.
You don't think so, no?
Not if it goes to 9 and 10 with performances of that nature, of that standard, of that level. If we perform like that in the games, nobody's going to say. Steve Clarke said himself, it's actually been 2 pretty good performances from us if you ignore the results. And I think there's a bit of tongue-in-cheek there, but he's right. And that's what I think this Nations League campaign is all about. It's about getting us into the shape that we need to be in for the World Cup qualifiers. Write it off in terms of, getting through to quarter-finals. Or all we need to do is come out of this group with our self-respect. And I'm telling you now, after these 2 games, I feel a whole lot better about that Scotland team than I did when I came back from Germany. That's a good start.
Yeah, and off the back of last night, I know Croatia are a good side, but you knew going into that game with a wee bit more positivity. You feel as if you could pick up at least a point in Zagreb.
Yeah.
I mean, Portugal at home was going to be tough. We could see how good they were last night when they were at it. But I think Jack was right that the performances need to be good. The belief is going to be there that we can get into the World Cup qualifiers and then start beating teams that you'd expect.
And let's not forget one final really important point. When push came to shove last night, look at what Portugal were able to bring on off their bench.
Exactly.
And look at what we were bringing on off our bench. That ultimately was probably the difference between the 2 sides. We've still got Lewis Ferguson's, hopefully Aaron Hickey, I know he's going to be out for a while, Nathan Patterson,
Kieran Tierney,
of course, which is an interesting one. Do we stick with the 4? Do we go to 5? All that for another day, of course. But we've got a lot of quality to come back into that. We've got into these games a little bit down on manpower. But, I'm not overly concerned. If this is the way that we're going to go over the next wee while, I'm pleased to see it.
I feel better already, guys. Safe trip home, and we'll see you both on the Hotline Live again very soon.
A message from our sponsors.
There you go. Record Sports version of the Neville brothers there, Swanee. But some good points raised. Before I get your take on it, I want to turn to some of the comments that we've had sent in on Record Sports social media. And I should say, if you're watching at home, get involved. Mark Tennant has written in on Facebook saying, time for him to go. He's taken us to 2 tournaments, but seems to have hit a brick wall, will not advance the team any further, and is more negative game on game. Ryan Davidson follows that up with, he said that it's evolution he's trying to achieve. He's taking us back to the Jurassic period with his tactics and team selection. However, Swanee, there was or has been quite a noticeable, a sizable amount of comments defending Clarke. Stuart Cunningham, Rome wasn't built in a day. You can see the progress with the squad under Clarke. Bruce Hosey, Steve Clarke is the most successful manager Scotland in a long time. Who are we going to replace him with? Who could do a better job? 90% of the squad are bang average. And James Taylor chimes in with this on Facebook. It's nothing to do with Clarke. The goalie sold the first goal. We knew Ronaldo would score. We're simply not good enough at this level, and any other manager would struggle now. Where do you fall in the kind of Steve Clarke debate, Swanee?
I think James's point there at the end is quite interesting. Something struck me when I watched the game last night, probably more so than the Poland game, but I would bracket the 2 of them in the same. Now, I take on board Keith's point. Obviously, the change with Billy Gilmore coming back in brings you more composure into the middle of the pitch. The system change perhaps has made a difference. Looks like it has. Gives you another alternative in there. Somebody else to take the ball. But everybody's going to mention Clarke. And to me, there's a large number of players who showed composure in the games on Thursday and in Portugal on Sunday, who didn't show any in Germany. The same players. Now, we keep going back to Steve Clarke all the time. The players have to take a shoulder of responsibility for this as well. There was decision making. Guys were just getting rid of it. They couldn't string 2 passes together in Germany. I don't know what it was, whether it was the build-up. We qualified a long time before the actual finals. There was such a build-up. I don't know whether mentally, emotionally, they played the games before they even got there, and they were just because they just didn't seem themselves. All of us said it when we watched the games from Germany. All of us looked at that team and thought those boys are unrecognisable from the ones who qualified us. Forget the games that came after that. This is all getting bracketed into, it's 1 winning, however, 14 or whatever it is. I'm not saying tools get downed after you qualify, but there's a natural downturn. Then they played a lot of big hitters in the friendlies to try and get themselves geared up. I just think the players didn't turn up in Germany. And Clarke has to take his responsibility. Of course he does. That decision to leave Billy Gilmour out of the first game just looks, as Keith says, crazier and crazier with every passing match that's happened subsequently. But it can't all just be down to the manager. There were situations last night at 1-1 when they were banging trouble. They were under a really hard, to go all hipster about it, they were under a really hard press. And Portugal were getting after them, and they kept the head, and they passed it out, and they played through the lines, as Scott said, and they kept it, and they got bodies forward onto the counter-attack because they did it well. They were passing 6, 7, 8, 9 times in a row, not panicking, not trying to force it, coming back if it wasn't on. They didn't do that once in Germany. Not once. And this is guys like Andy Robertson and things like that, same players.
Aye.
So I just think it's not all on the manager. I'm convinced of that. And I don't think, while it's going brilliantly, it's all on him. While it's also started going slightly badly, I don't think it's all on him either. I know managers always carry the can, but the players didn't turn up in Germany. Last 2 games, we've seen the players play as they can. And I know it's a results business, and I know mistakes are part of the game. And I know that, you can't just wash them aside, but we are getting a draw last night. Well, we're a goal up, and Angus Gunn makes a mistake, as has been mentioned by the lads. Then you've got the ball into the box at the end, and Scott McKenna's only doing what was it 900 times has happened before. Guys, busy concentrated on the man they're looking after, and he's too busy trying to get into a wrestling match with Cristiano Ronaldo, and he forgets to look at the cross coming in. But listen, far better defenders than Scott McKenna have been guilty of that against Cristiano Ronaldo. And in fairness to him, he lost him. He was lost a couple of times. There was a header back across Angus Gunn that hit the inside of the post. He got lost. So he was maybe thinking, I better just stay more than touch tight. I'm mean, almost try and grapple this guy to make sure he can't get in the end of this. And he's been done by probably one of the world's greatest ever players. So these things happen. Mistakes happen. You can't just write them off. But Keith makes a good point as well about what they were. Cristiano Ronaldo is one of the guys they're bringing on. João Felix came on last night. It was absolutely brilliant. No. Those 2 came on and caused mayhem. When they came on, we just didn't have that. Young lad Tommy Conway coming on. I mean, these boys have got a long way to go. To get. We don't have the depth to do that. But I think, in Keith's point, we have to understand that we qualified for this top pot for good performances for this Nations League. Now, we all want to see progress, but you would have looked at those 6 fixtures before the games kicked off, and you were struggling to find a win, really. Everybody's pointing to the Poland game last week. Oh, that's going to be the only chance of getting points. Oh, that might be the best chance to win a game, or they might struggle. Well, I don't understand how you can tie that in with, if you don't get anything out of the Nations League group, Steve Clarke has to go. I don't have that, because if you know before it starts that you're highly unlikely to get much joy out of it, then if you don't get much joy out of it, why does that change everything? I don't get that part of it, which I've heard an awful lot. If this result goes, if it keeps growing, you can't think like that. I remember when Ange Postecoglou came to Celtic and he kept getting hit with the bat. Oh, Celtic haven't won a home game in the Champions League for 9 years, and Ange Postecoglou would go, "What's that got to do with me?"
Aye.
Yeah, so it's just got nothing to do with me. The results have happened before. You just bracket them all in and go, it's only 1-1 in 14 and it's only Gibraltar. Forget all of that. Let's start looking forward. And as you look forward to the next 4 games, realistically, I'll ask you, Daniel, realistically, how many points would you expect to get from those 4, even if you play at your peak?
I think it's reasonable to say we're going to be underdogs in all 4 games.
Exactly.
Aye.
So, as long as we perform reasonably well, and show that we're moving in the right direction. Are the results absolutely critical in this Nations League? I'm not sure they are.
Aye. No, I think you make plenty of good points. Dougie Main, however, has written in on Facebook, and he says, 5... hold on, I've got that scrolling there. Hold on, just 1 second. Technology. Dougie Main says, 5 of the 14 games were winnable, but the football was so negative under Clarke. Thanks for what he's done, but you need a change now. And see, just following up on what you said there, Swanee, look, see the people that are calling for Clarke's head. On one hand, I understand 1 win in 14, longest competitive losing streak Scotland's ever had. But you go back even just a year, we were on an amazing run, 5 wins in a row, beating Spain. And I don't know what you think, but I agree with Keith. I think even if we lose the next 2 games, I think if we put in good performances, as you say, if we show progression, I don't think Clarke should really be in danger of losing his job. And it's still quite fresh in my mind, all the years we didn't get to tournaments. You know what I mean? Literally 20 years.
Forget so quickly, Daniel. We forget so quickly. We're guilty of it. We've raised the expectations we have done, and that's fair enough. You should always aim high in football. That's fair. But you look at the friendlies that we're taking on before the Euros, they were done for the right reasons. They were done for the right reasons. Now, it's coming back to haunt Steve Clarke. Now, listen, they played Northern Ireland at Hampden and got beaten. It was an absolutely dreadful performance. So maybe the point I'm just going to make maybe doesn't stand up if somebody wants to hit me back with it. But Scotland could have chosen not to play one of the major hires, not to play England. They could have picked a home game with Finland and won that just to break the sequence. So, realistically, I don't buy too much into these things. I'd rather look at the whole thing overall and see where you're going and see what's changing. And we have a situation. Look, Scotland are in the same bracket as our teams when they go into Europe. Unless they can get their first pick team on the pitch, it's going to be difficult. Now, I don't think anybody that argue that Aaron Hickey's our best right back and Kieran Tierney's our best centre back, and we're giving goals away because we're missing 2 of our best defenders. Yeah. I don't think that's coincidental. Kieran Tierney would have been playing in the exact position that Scott McKenna was in last night when that winning goal came. Now, Cristiano Ronaldo might still have scored it, but it's hard for us to compete. And then when you're talking about opening up and playing more on the front foot, does the manager have a thought process of, I've not really got my first pick back line here. I might just try and give him a wee bit extra protection, because if you go and open up, playing the front foot, you go and open up against Portugal last night, it'll be another Andy Roxburgh job and you'll be 5. Aye. So there has to be a balance in there. There has to be a bit of sense when we're thinking about these things. And listen, everybody's entitled to an opinion, and if people don't like Clarke, don't want him, think he's negative, that's fair enough. I think he built his initial Scotland success on being, negative's the wrong word, compact, making sure we didn't give goals away. Because you said, Daniel, when he walked into that job, we were getting done 3-0 in Kazakhstan. Aye. We were terrible defensively. So you've got to try and sort that out first and foremost. So his pragmatic approach worked and took us to a certain place, 2 tournaments.
Aye. Harvey Smith has written in on Facebook saying, agreeing with you, Swanee, saying it's easy to blame the manager. Just look at the biggest teams in the SPFL and how many non-Scots are regulars and how few young Scots get a chance. It's kind of agreeing with what you're saying in terms of we just don't have the depth. Portugal bringing on literally one of the best players of all time last night. And I know, he's a really good player, Tommy Conway, but, we're bringing on Tommy Conway. It's just the facts of life. Yeah. For what it's worth, I think, personally, Clarke should be given the World Cup qualifiers no matter what happens. Should be given that campaign because for my money, he's earned it. He deserves it. More than earned it.
I agree with you. Listen, barring 4 successive 8-0 defeats, I mean, there are always circumstances which can change the issue, but like I hark back to, we're not expected to take really anything from these next 4 games. Okay, you can argue. I mean, I personally, looking at the last 2 performances, look at Croatia, Zlatko Dalic has been there forever. Luka Modric is still playing. Ivan Perisic is still coming off the bench. They're not quite the aging team that they were because some of the guys have been sort of palmed off now. But they're bringing new guys in and they're trying to integrate them. They've not been great at the start. They get beaten Portugal. They managed to beat Poland at home when we were in Lisbon. But as we saw at Hampden Park the other night, Poland aren't aren't fabulous. You know, they're better than us, but they're not fabulous.
Aye.
So I think we could get something off them at Hampden. But realistically, as we said, you're not going into these games expecting to win them all. And you're not, you made the fair point. We're going to be underdogs in the 4 of them.
Aye.
So let's just perform well, get in the right, get Ben Doak some more minutes. Let's see if Tommy Conway can do something. Let's get Kieran Tierney back in the team. Let's try a couple of things. Let's see if we can get. Would anybody consider, how brilliant Ryan Christie's been for Bournemouth, playing in that position deep in the midfield? Why don't we try playing Ryan Christie in there, maybe next to Billy Gilmour? Let's try some things. Let's see if it makes us even better on the ball, even better, keeping a hold of it, getting it forward. Let's see if somebody can emerge to go and play in the wide area to let Ryan Christie go back there. Let's see. Let's use these 4 games for that. And then, as you say, the World Cup qualifiers are all that counts.
Aye, that's it. Before we move on from Scotland, and I hate feeling like I'm singling them out, but the one area that I would really look at, Swanee, is the goalie. Like Angus Gunn at the minute, I don't even know if it's confidence or whatever, but he doesn't look like an assured goalkeeper at international level. He gave away a goal last night again. Would you consider a change for the games next month?
Scott McDermott's hit the nail on the head. With whom? Are we getting Fraser Wilson's gloves out for under the cupboard or what?
Michael Gannon?
Michael Gannon, because at the end of the day, as Scott pointed out, Xander Clark's not playing. Robbie McCrory started the season well at Kilmarnock, but he's not playing just now either.
Do you think the ship has sailed for Craig Gordon?
I think at some point you have to move on, yeah. I mean, Craig Gordon has just been out of this world as a goalkeeper in general and a magnificent Scotland goalkeeper. At some point, I think you have to move on because you have to think, if we're talking about the World Cup, you're another year on. When you're deep into that campaign, you have to.
Aye.
I personally would stick with Angus Gunn, and let's see how it goes through the next couple of games. I certainly wouldn't be reaching to get short of him just now again because of the lack of alternatives. But I suppose Keith's right. You've got to keep an eye on his club form as well.
Aye,
if that nosedives in the next month, then it may be worth consideration. But I'm just struggling to see with him.
Aye, no, that's a fair point. Right, away from the international scene, Swanee, the one big story that has been on Record Sport Online throughout this afternoon, James Tavernier, reports coming out of Turkey that his former Rangers manager Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, of course now Besiktas manager, is closing in on a deal for Tavernier, and that's generated quite a big response on our social media outlets. I'll throw a couple at you just to kind of gauge the mood. Alistair Ramage says, hopefully Tavernier is off any day now. Gordon Ferguson follows it up with, Tavernier can neither read the game, nor has any pace, nor has any leadership qualities. Appreciate the goals, etc., but the amount we've leaked because of him outweighs that total. However, on the other side, James Cooper says, he goes and will be worse off. That would mean Dessers has to score in every game. And Norrie Morrison follows it up with, all the abuse is a bit sad. He did a lot for our club, from the lower levels to winning a title again. It must be tough to have your own turn on you in such a brutal way. I genuinely, Swanee, I feel really sorry for James Tavernier because I definitely think he's reached the point where he maybe has lost a yard or what have you, but he doesn't deserve to be, as that caller says, to be turned on in the way he has been.
No, I said this on Hotline Live last week, Daniel, to Keith, that James Tavernier might not be at the levels he was at before, but he's been a brilliant servant for Rangers, and I'm certainly not one who would think that James Tavernier should be hounded out the door because, listen, I was the first one to say after the game at Celtic Park that you really have to seriously consider whether James Tavernier should be picked in that position again to play against Celtic because clearly Dyson Maeda has fried him and it doesn't cope with it. However, there is a large number of games in the Scottish domestic scene where Rangers will dominate the ball and James Tavernier's delivery and goal-scoring abilities are going to be really important. So I would see no reason to. I agree with the hotline call that's come in about Rangers would be worse off if he's not there. I think they would be.
I agree.
The one thing I would add on it is, and actually there was a story today with Chris Wilder at Sheffield United losing his rag over the transfer window, and and the fact that it started and doesn't finish until after the fixtures are finished. Now, it's bad enough that there's some uniformity that brings it to a close in most countries when 3 or 4 league fixtures have already been played. It's beyond ridiculous that it's extended to other countries.
Aye.
Then they can sign player. I mean, it's farcical that this story can even be around, and the fact that James Tavernier, Rangers don't have to sell, of course, but it's ridiculous that that situation could arrive. There will be clubs around Europe who are going to lose players to Turkey and don't have an ability to go and sign someone because their transfer window's closed. I mean, whoever's organising this, Chris Wilder's absolutely spot on. As I say, it's bad enough, but I get it. All seasons are staggered and they don't all start at the same time. So I get it. Okay, you can't have it that the transfer window closes before every league starts because that's not going to work. But this situation where certain countries are still allowed to sign, it's preposterous that this situation should even have arisen. Once August the 30th come, that should be the end of it. James Tavernier should be there until January. And that's it. Or whatever, December the 31st or whatever. I think it's just mad. But I still believe James Tavernier will be a loss to Rangers.
I completely agree. I mean, what was it, 27 goals last season or what have you?
Where are all the other goals coming from? It's all of a sudden for guys who would rather James Tavernier wasn't there. I get it. The Old Firm game, he's gone it right back. For me, he's gone it right back. Europe will have to see how that transpires in the Europa League matches. Maybe it'll be the same there too. But there's certainly so much domestic football that we played, and Rangers are short of bodies as has.
If you were in his shoes, Swanee, would you look for a move if it's there? Or would you stay?
If I was him, after what I've had to deal with over the last week or so, I probably wouldn't mind heading off to the sunshine of Turkey, to be quite honest with you. I mean, there's not really much else for him to do here. He's been in a European final with Rangers. He hasn't won anywhere near the trophies that a Rangers captain should be for the amount of time he's been there, or the amount of trophies a Rangers player should be for the amount of time he's been there. But yeah, I think he's done plenty. Me personally, after being, it seems to be he's now a whipping boy. He is now one of the ones who's going to get it. Serial loser, all of that stuff that gets put in his direction. So if I was him, I would probably go. But you listen to James Tavernier talk. Listen, players have always got to say this in public. So I don't know what James Tavernier says in his living room and no one else can hear it, but he always says that he's in it for the long haul. He's no intentions of going anywhere. So we'll just have to take him at his word.
For what it's worth, I thought it was really bad that stick he took after the game at the weekend or last weekend. But I guess outside the stadium, I thought the fan.
Any player should be subjected to that. It's disgraceful. But what does that achieve?
I know. But not even that though. What I mean is, you're completely right. Any player that has to put up with it shouldn't have to put up with that. But I just think particularly Tavernier. He's been a brilliant player for Rangers, top scorer in Europa League when they got to the final. Captained them to the 55th title, won every trophy. I thought that was really out of order.
Listen, every supporter who pays his season ticket money and pays his money to watch Rangers is entitled to say, "You're gone, you're finished, you're past it." That's different from screaming at his face.
Aye, I know.
I don't think that's necessary. You can give a bit of heckling for the stands or whatever, but I'm not sure that's. And I have to say, I have to be honest. For what I'm told, me, Daniel, I'm not a social media type character, but for what I'm told, the response to that from fellow Rangers fans was very heavy in the sense of cut that out. That's
I think it was.
I think the majority of the Rangers fans would agree with what you're saying.
I think so. I guess watch this space in terms of what happens with Tavernier in his future. But for now, Swanee, I think that brings us to the end of Monday's Hotline Live. I should say, if you sent in any comments, thank you very much. And we'll be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. with another episode. Swanee, it's always a pleasure.
Thanks, Daniel. All the best. I better leave now because the darkness appears to be descending the gloom. So I'll see you later. Thanks, Daniel.
Nice one. And thanks for watching at home. Cheers.